श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। गुरुब्रह्मा गुरुविष्णु गुरुदेव महेश्वर गुरुसाक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषये पुरोगणां मध्ये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गजाननं भूतगणाधिसेवितं कपित्थजम्बो प्रसारभक्षितं नमामि विघ्नेश्वरपादपङ्कजम्। शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये व्यासम् अष्टरप्तारं शक्ते वक्त्रमुखलं शम्बराशरात्मं देशकजातं तपोनिधिं व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णुवे नमो वै ब्रह्मदेवासिष्ठाय नमो नमः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. So Vidura Parva, Udhyoga Parva, we are looking at Vidura neeti, and Vidura continues explaining to Dhritarashtra question on why certain people do not live the entire lifespan, allotted lifespan. And he says that those that are they that are abundant, that can speak agreeable words. There are many people who speak agreeable words, but it is very rare to find the people who speak disagreeable but medicinal words. That means that is good for you, but you may not like it. So the people who, without regarding what is agreeable or disagreeable to his master, but keeping the virtue alone in the view, speaks, even though it is unpalatable but medicinal, add truly adds the strength to that king. And he says that for the sake of the family member, this is, I think, we heard this back in Sabha Parva, or even before that, when the Kauravas were born, Gandhari gave birth to 100 sons. At that time itself, Vidura said this. So, for the sake of a family, one member may be sacrificed. For the sake of a village, a family may be sacrificed. And for the sake of kingdom, a village could be sacrificed. And similarly, for the sake of one's Atma, who the whole earth, maybe one may give up the whole earth. So sacrifice here means give up, not actually kill them or destroy them. It is giving up, no attachment to them. So for the good of a family, one could give up one member. If the member is wicked, for the rest of the family to follow the virtuous path, one should give up. Similarly, if one family is evil in a village, you should give up on that family in the village and push them out of that village. Similarly, a village, if it is harming the kingdom, could give up that village. But one should be able to give up the entire earth, everything for Atma, for Paramatma. Similarly, one should protect one's wealth with view of calamities that may overtake him. So anything that could happen to wealth. So that's why one should protect. And by wealth, one should protect his wives both. And by both wealth and his wife, one should protect one's own self. So this is again, first one protect the wealth from anything that could happen to that wealth. So make sure that that's protected from thieves or any harm. That's so that we already discussed a few times on the how to increase the wealth and other things. So Vidura says that from that wealth, one should protect his wife. And then we're using both wife and wealth, one should protect oneself. That means one should do the virtuous things using wealth and with wife support. So he then talks about gambling. He says that gambling provokes quarrels and it is not wise, and it should not even in just one should resort to gambling. And at the time of the dice match itself, and when the sabha was set up for that, I told you not to do this. But just like medicine, a sick man does not uh, wish to have that difficult medicine, that's untasty medicine. You did not listen to me at that time, and your desire was to defeat Pandavas, but that's what you did. You gave up those Pandavas who or like peacocks having very colorful, beautiful feathers, and you stuck with your sons who are all like crows. So by protecting jackals, you are forsaking the lions. So he says, Vidura says that go back to Pandavas and protect them, and they are the lions, and you should, when time comes, you will grieve for because of all this. So in the gambling, in that dice game, what you did, and before and after all the things you did to Pandavas, because of that, because you have jackals in with you and not lions, you are going to suffer for that. Vidura then continues that the master should not give to vent his displeasure to the devotees servants. So on the servants he should always have confidence, and he should, on the devoted servants he should all never vent his anger with them, and by doing that the servants will come to his help in time of distress. Similarly, if master confiscates the grants is given to a servant or stops paying them and things like that, then the servants will not come to his side. When he is in distress, they will not come to his side. But other times they probably will be there, but when he is in trouble, servants won't come. Similarly, that's why king should always make proper alliance with those people, the servants and everybody, make sure that he has right people around him. Then he talks about the officers king should have. The officers again will discharge the duties of the king, who is he should look for the officers who is respectable and devoted to his master, and tells master what is good for the master, not just speaking what one would like to hear, but also those difficult words which are medicinal, uh, but maybe disagreeable or unpalatable. So such servants one should have, and a servant again, one if one refuses to submit and proud of his own intelligence and given to arguing against his master, such a servant should be they get got rid of. So such one should not be entertained and continued. Vidura says that men who are learned that a servant should be endued with 8 qualities. We came across these 8 qualities. Dhaumi explained this when Pandavas were about to leave forest and go on Ajnatavasa, their 13th year, about to spend their 13th year serving some other people. At that time, Dhaumi explained these qualities. They should servants should not have pride. There should be absence of pride. They should have the ability, absence of laziness. They should be kind. They should be clean, incorruptibility, birth in a family free from taint of disease, weightiness of speech. All these 8 qualities should be there in a servant. And Vidura then says, man should not enter enemy's house after dusk, even with notice. So again, you don't know what's there in enemy's house, so you should never go in darkness. One should not at night lurk in the yard of another's premises. So again, another place in darkness one should not go, nor should enjoy the woman who king might like. So if king is interested in a woman, one should not go and enjoy that woman, because then you become king might become angry at you, and that's the worst thing that could happen. Never set yourself against the decisions to which a person has arrived who keeps low company and who is in the habit of consulting all the mates. So again, so one should never go with the decisions, go against the decisions when person of a low, uh, who keeps low company, who was not a good friend, comes to you, and never tell him that I do not believe you. Again, if someone you don't like, uh, and that person makes a decision, do not go against them immediately saying that I do not believe you, I don't want you, I don't like these things. But assigning some other reason, send him away. So telling something else, send them away. So it's once you got rid of that person, then you don't have to worry about this. So you don't need to be thinking about that. So don't just immediately go against that such discussions. Then Vidura says that the king who is exceedingly merciful, woman of livid characters, servant of a king, a son, a brother, a widow having an infant son, one serving in the army, and one has suffered great losses. One should never go get into transactions of lending or borrowing the money. So again, king who is exceedingly merciful, if you keep giving money to such king, it will money everything will lose. Similarly, woman, servant of a king, son, brother. So this is very interesting. Son, brother, Vidura says that we should not lend or borrow. Again, you can always, all these people, you can help. Okay, so woman, a widow having an infant son, you should help. With Mahabharata, we already learned many times that you should always help. And one who has suffered great losses, you should always help such a person with financially and all the other means. But you should never lend or borrow from such persons. The 8 qualities give fame to men, and those are wisdom, high lineage, acquaintance with scriptures, self restraint, prowess, moderation in speech, gift to extent of one's power, and gratefulness. So these 8 qualities give fame to men. And these high qualities are necessarily brought together by only one gift, that is king's favor. So if the king's favor is there, then all these 8 qualities will be superseded by that one, because king's favor brings even more fame. Vidura says that the one that performs ablutions wins these 10 things. So doing argya in holy places or every Sandhya time, doing those things, one gets these 10 things. What are they? Strength, beauty, clear voice, capacity to utter alphabetical sounds, that means clear pronunciation, delicacy of touch, fineness of scent, cleanliness, gracefulness, delicacy of limbs, and beauty of lumen. One gets all these things by doing Sandhya and holy places in the rivers and lakes and other places, holy waters, doing the ablutions. And then the one who eats sparingly wins these 6: health, long life, his progeny also become healthy, and nobody reproaches him for being eating a lot of food. So some of these are very well known: health, eating less; health, long life, again because of good health; that means will be flexible and fit. And also children becomes healthy. So if adults are eating a lot of food, children also look at that and eat a lot of food. So becomes the family theme that everybody eats a lot of food. And so that's why there says sparingly eating benefits all these things. One should not give shelter to these in the house. Who are they? One who always acts improperly, the one that eats too much, the one hated by all, the one exceedingly deceitful, one that is cruel, one that is ignorant of time and place properties of time and place, the one that dresses indecently. So some of these are interesting. Don't know the explanations why one dresses indecently. Maybe because it's going to give uncomfort to the people who is hosting. Actually, similarly, eats too much. Not sure why, but if one eats too much, one should not give shelter to that person. So that's what Vidura says. The person, however distressed, one should never solicit. If one is even in distress, one should not solicit a miser for alms, or the one that speaks ill of others, or the one that is unacquainted with the Shastras, scriptures, the dweller in the woods. So that means one already gone to the woods. The one that is cunning, one that does not regard persons of worthy of regard, and one that is cruel, or one that habitually quarrels with others, or the one that is ungrateful. So with these persons, one should never ask for alms or gifts or things like that. and the person should never wait upon these six worst men. So that is one that is a enemy, one that is always makes errors, one that is wedded to falsehood, the one wanting a devotion of devatas, so that means he never worships devatas, and the one that is without affection, the one that's always regards himself as competent to do everything. So these six men, one should not serve for them and one should not make companionship with them. So again, Vidura says one's purposes depend on their success, on the means, what means you do take to achieve that success, and similarly means depend again on the nature of the purpose. So these both purpose and means, how you achieve and what you want to achieve, both depend on each other. Then he says having sons, rendering them, making them independent by making them some provision for them, and giving the daughters to eligible persons, one should retire to woods and desire to live like a Muni. So having children after that means after completing life of a householder, one should retire to woods and live as a Muni. So when he should retire, after having children, bringing up that children, seeing them growing, and then once they become adult, give that son provision so that he can continue his life. And if you have daughters, marry them off, and then one should retire to woods, forest. So these days again, return to woods and forest is not possible. But what one should do is at that age, one should live like a Muni, even though living in a home and in the city, one should live like a Muni, not attached to everything and not still accumulating wealth and things like that. So we heard in one Parva, right, where Bhima talks about splitting life into different stages. In the early stages of life, kama, the desires, and then uh, the second half is artha, the accumulation of wealth. So let's say first 20 years, 2025 age, desires, and then 25 to 35, 40, wealth accumulation, and then it is dharma. So that's where one should look for the virtue and start doing virtuous things. So that doesn't mean that one should not do dharma from the early stages, but at least one must do by that age. Then Vidura here again says one should, for obtaining the favors of Paramatma, do the things which is good for all the creatures and also for his own happiness. So because it is this which is the root of success of one's all objects. So you can do everything, you can attain fame, wealth, and everything, but if one does not become favorable to Paramatma, there is no success. And that's why Dhira says that one should be good to all the creatures, and that's the best happiness. And we see this in Bhagavad Gita, the supreme bliss, the Paramanda. So that's the state one should aim for, and that comes from being good to all the creatures. So Vidura then reminds again Dhritarashtra saying all this, then look at the evils that Pandavas have suffered. Even Devatas would sadden by all those things that Pandavas had to suffer. And these are that Devatas becoming sad are the first, and the enemy you became, they became your enemies, and that's the first problem you have. The second is because of that, your life is a continued anxiety. And then third one is loss of fair fame for the Kurus, because you're not going to have any of that fame that Pandavas are going to have. And lastly, joy of those that are your enemies. So Pandavas are your enemies and they will be joyous by all these things you have done. He says, Vidura reminds that the anger of Bhishma, Drona, Yudhishthira will consume the entire earth and nothing will survive after this. That's why stop this war. Whatever that you are doing, stop this, with your 100 sons, Karna and the sons of Pandu, rule this entire earth from all the oceans to the mountains, rule this entire earth happily. Then he continues says that the sinful people never seek much good qualities or look at much of good qualities in others. Instead, they only look for the faults in others. So, but on the other hand, the virtuous people, they always look for the good qualities and ignore any faults one has, another person has. So that's why they are they are never separated from heaven, and the one who's not associated with the sin and firmly fixed on the virtue has all the things going for him, and the one that follows dharma, artha, kama in proper seasons obtains both here and hereafter all the three. So he obtains dharma, artha, kama, all the three things he obtains here and in this life and afterwards, if one follows them in proper seasons when he should do. And the one that uh, restrains the force of both anger and joy never loses his senses under calamities and wins prosperity. So then he says that men are said to have 5 different kinds of strength, and those strengths are strength of arms, which is your pure strength and physical strength. That is said to be the inferior of all the 5 type of strengths. And what are the other 4? They are acquisition of good counselors. So you have always good counsel, uh, good advice, receiving them. That's the second kind of thing. And then the acquisition of wealth, then the strength one that naturally comes from one's fathers and grandfathers. So that's the next one. And then the strength of intellect. So if one has the intellect, that's the supreme strength. Then the one that comes from the strength that comes from birth. So having a birth in a good family of father and grandfathers, that's the second best. And then having the wealth, and then good counselors, and then the arms. Then he talks about enemies. So he says that if one provokes hostility of a person who is capable of doing a great harm, even though that person assures that there is a one should not be thinking that that person lives far away. Okay, so I don't have to worry about it. So if one is has an enemy, even though that person is quite far, one should not think that I'm not in danger. So he says that the person that is wise never trusts, places his trust on women, kings, serpents, and his own master enemies, and all these things. One never trust. And then he says that there are no physicians or medicines that can be struck with an arrow of wisdom. So wisdom is the, again, intellect. We said about strength of intellect. So he says that wisdom is the best thing, and neither homa, mantras, or any other ceremonies, Atharva Veda, so or anything that can come close to that. He says that serpents, fire, lion, and relatives, close blood relatives, none of these should be regarded by a wise man, and these are possessed because they are possessed of great power. So it should be always be looked out of. So we already looked at relatives in the last session. So relatives should be protected and taken care of and things like that. Again, he says that the fire again is has a great energy, and the fire that brought by friction of things is capable of consuming the entire forest, but it stays quiet until somebody actually creates that fire by friction, either through stones or the matchbox or whatever these days, right? So till that time, it stays quiet. Similarly, men of high birth So they are like fire. They always forgive and they never betray another person. They betray no outward symptoms of any anger or anything, but like quite fire. But when they are angry, they can consume the entire forest, entire thing. Vidura then says the heart of a young man when aged and old people, respectable people come to his house, becomes very happy by going towards them, saluting them. He uh, becomes very pleased, and the one that is self-controlled, first offering the seat, bringing water, causing the guests' feet to be washed, making them usual inquiries, welcoming inquiries of welcome, then speaking of good words, all these things, and then offering them the food. That person is the best one. So again, we looked at repeatedly on this guest, looking after the guest and brahmanas. So when they come, offering the seat, wash their feet, and then give them the seat, and then they give them the food and nice words to speak of all those things. So the the voice again, Vidura says that the man lives in vain whose dwelling a Brahmana conversant. So if a Brahmana of learned uh, Brahmana and learned conversant with Vedas, mantras, does not accept water, honey, curd, cows, all these things. If one does not accept in a man's house, that man's living is of no use because Brahmanas, again, this comes down to what Brahmana accepts, where he accepts, and where he goes, and things like that. Right. So a learned Brahmana, good Brahmana, does not accept from everyone's home the gifts and dana and everything, and he does not go for bhiksha in every place. So if one does not come to house and that person's house is that person is living in useful life. So again, it, the Vidura then says that there are people who, even though they are undeserving, one may offer them water. So, like they are a physician, a maker of the arrows, and the one that has given up the brahmacharya vow even before it's complete, a thief, a crooked-minded brahmana that drinks alcohol, the one that causes miscarriage, the one that lives by serving in an army, and then what? Then the one that sells Vedas. That means he teaches Vedas to the undeserving people, and also he charges for conducting uh, sacrifices and things like that by uttering those Vedas. And uh, when so all these people, when they come as a guest, even though they do not deserve to be treated, one should still may offer them the water. So that's should be followed because water should always be offered. And a Brahmana, Vidura says, that should never become a seller of salt, cooked food, curds, milk, honey, oil, ghee, tila, sesame seed, meat, fruits, roots, pot herbs, dyed clothes, and perfumery, all these things. Brahmana should never sell these things. So this becomes very interesting. I mean, this has been repeated many times that Brahmana can do Vaishya's duty or even uh, Kshatriya and Vaishya's duty in the time of distress. Manusmriti, for example, repeatedly says that Brahmana can do those things, but there are exceptions. The selling of these things are Vaishya's duty, and even selling salt and some other things is even Vaishyas cannot do. So here it talks about salt, cooked food, curd, milk, honey, ghee, all these things. Brahmana should never sell, even when he's resorts to a Vaishya's duty, he should not do. So this is very interesting these days because we used to have At least in Karnataka, we used to have Udupi Brahmanas hotel. So Brahmanas hotel means cooked food. You should never sell cooked food, right? So there is this Shastra clearly says that Brahmana cannot do those kind of things. So Brahmana cannot have a restaurant, for example, because that's selling cooked food. He cannot have a milk selling. He cannot sell milk or honey, oil, ghee, or fruits, all these things. But there is, you will come back in later in Shanti Parva or Anushasana Parva, where it says that Brahmana instead can exchange this for other things he may need. So let's say he has a lot of milk, he can give that and exchange it for something he needs. So he might need rice, for example. He can give milk and he can exchange that for uh, rice and other things, but he cannot sell it as a for a currency, for a money. Then Vidura says the one that is a real bhikshu or a yogin is the one who never gives way to anger. So he's always controls his anger. He is above uh, grief, that never impacted by anything that's bad things that happen. He never grieves or anything, and is no longer in need of friendship and quarrels. And he disregards both praise and blame and stands aloof from both agreeable and disagreeable. So he does not attach to any of those things and perfectly withdrawn from this world. And that such an ascetic who lives on rice growing in the wild. So that's again not growing in the farming land, but grown in the wild. The roots, water, and who has his soul under full control, all the senses under full control, and who carefully keeps his fire of worship, that is Agnihotra, and then dwelling in the woods is always regardful of guests. So always looks after his guests is indeed the foremost of his brotherhood. So that such a person is the best of the bhikshus and yogin. So who has anger under control, he never grieves, and who does not need friendships or quarrels. He never blames anybody or takes any prizes. He never attached to anything agreeable or disagreeable, doesn't get into any quarrels, arguments, always withdrawn from this world, eats what is grown in the wild, the roots and other things, who has full self control and carefully keeps his fire, and also looks after the guests that's coming. Such a person is a big real. And then Vidura talks about if one person is wronged, an intelligent person, one should never gather assurance that this is somewhat repeat of what said previously, where he said, even though enemy is living far away, do not think that you are safe. Similarly, here it says that if one is does something wrong to another person, even though that person is living far away, do not think that distance matters, because those intelligence people will have long arms. That means they can reach you wherever they are. From there, they can return that wrongs to you done by you. And then he says one should never put trust on him who should not be trusted, not too much put too much trust on him who should be trusted. So again, never put trust on those who should not be trusted, but also those who you can trust, never put too much trust, because by putting so much trust on one person, it's there is a risk of having everything cut off from the very own root. So it's danger coming from that. That's why never trust anybody completely. So Vidura says that trust the trustable people, but never too much. It should never become too much. So you always question, always have that in your mind, not to trust 100%. Then he says one should renounce envy, protect one's wife, and give others what is their due, and be agreeable in speech. So, because again, One should be sweet-tongued and pleasant in address as regards to one's wife, but should never be their slave. So one should speak good words, nice words to one's wife, but for their slaves, one should not be sweet tongued because, again, we heard about slaves and servants. If you are very nice, they will not do what they are supposed to do. And he says that wives that are highly blessed and virtuous, worthy of worship, and the ornaments of their homes are really embodiment of domestic prosperity. So if wife is virtuous, blessed, and uh, that just wife is actually in the householder life, she is the wealth. She is the wealth of the domestic life, and she is the prosperity, and that's why should be protected. Then he says how to give work to others, or who should do own what responsibilities. He says that the inner apartments of looking after the inner apartment should be father's duty, kitchen should be mother, and the looking after the cows should be somebody who takes care as just like oneself. So, and then agriculture one should do himself, whoever it is owns that, he should do himself and never should allocate that to somebody else. So inner apartments to father, kitchen to mother, and looking after cows to somebody who is just good as me or myself, and then agriculture I should do myself, not giving to anybody, because then only it comes good. So we people say that gardening at whatever it these days, people say that plants, I look after them. That's why they come good. Because if somebody else takes care, it doesn't come good. So you should never give it to somebody because they might not do it, know all the things that need to happen. Then he says that one should look after the guests of Vaishya through his servants and those of Brahmana through his sons. So Brahmana guest coming in, one should look after them through his sons, but Vaishya guests through his servants. So he says that the fire has its origin in water, Kshatriyas in Brahmana, iron in the stone, and energy of those, that is the fire, Kshatriya, and iron, can affect all the things, but neutralized as soon as it comes with the contact with the its originators. So Kshatriya coming against Brahmana, if he comes, his power will be reduced. Similarly, fire when it comes to water, it is extinguished. So then Vidura says that the fire lies concealed in the wood without showing externally. Good and forgiving men born of high families or with fear and always have fierce energy. They do not betray any outward symptoms, and that's why they should be very careful, because they can consume, like just like fire, they can consume the entire, uh, destroy everything. And the king, he talks about again, the king whose counsel cannot be known by either outsider or those about him, but knows the counsels of the others through his spies, enjoys prosperity. So if a counsel is given to a king, if that is not known by anybody outside, only by him, but he knows through his spies all the things about the other kings, then that kings live happily. He will have prosperity. Vidura continues and he says one should never speak of what one intends to do. Uh, Anything one does in respect of virtue, profit, desire, not known till it is done. So counsels always should be kept secret. So just like one should in secrecy, if by going to, he says where, how one should get those counsels, anything that should be kept secret, where one should discuss, going on top of a mountain or terrace of the palace, or going into wilderness where there are no plants and trees, because if plants and trees are there, people may be hiding behind that. So go into a vast field where nobody is there, nobody can hear. In those places, secrecy, one should get those secret councils and discussions should happen. And uh, a friend without learning, or a learned friend who has no control over his senses deserves to be deposit of state secret. So the friend, these people should not know the state secrets. So again, he also says that similar thing: never appoint a minister without examining them, because king's finances and other things, council should always depend on this minister, his ministers, and ministers always should be examined. That's why should always be examined before appointing them. And king is the foremost of the rulers, and most whose ministers know his actions in respect of virtue, profit, and desire only after they are done. So again, ministers who respect virtue, profit, and desire, those are the ministers one should keep close, and with that, king commands success. The one from ignorance commits the actions that are censurable, loses everything, and by doing the acts that is praiseworthy is always attended with these. So anything that one does, commits rashly and things like that, always leads to repentance. So just like a brahmana who is not studied the Vedas is not fit to officiate the Shraddhas, just like that, the king who does not know the six means of protecting his kingdom does not deserve to rule the kingdom. He is not worthy of ruling the kingdom. So what are those six means? We already discussed previously on those six things. Like, for example, making reconciliation, or bribing, or looking for an opportunity of the enemy, and things like that. So those are uh, those all the six things one king should know. He should always keep an eye on increase and decrease of his wealth, surplus, what he has, what he can spend, what he can't spend, what he need to keep, and all those things one should keep is always on his treasury, keep an eye on those things. King should always be content with the name he wins, because if he desires more, and then he will get into trouble. He should be content with what he has. So Vidura says a Brahmana knows a Brahmana, a husband understands a wife, king knows the ministers, a monarch knows monarchs, and that's why one should alone, he should alone appropriate everything, should not alone appropriate everything, and he should keeping his enemies at distance and understanding everything about the enemies. He should gain sufficient strength, and then only he should make any move. One should, with an effort and control, one should with an effort control his anger against the devatas, kings, brahmanas, old men, children, and those that are helpless, and the people who engage in unprofitable quarrels, such as fools or only engage in, and the wise, the one who wins the great fame in this world, and avoids misery and unhappiness. So if one avoids unavoidable, unprofitable quarrels, then that results in a happiness and fame. So he also says that the intelligence does not exist for acquisitions of wealth, nor idleness for cause of adversity. Man of wisdom only knows and not others the cause of diversities of conditions of the world. Fool always disregards those that are elderly in years and eminent in conduct and knowledge, and intelligence in wealth and lineage. So calamities soon will overtake those wicked people. So absence of deceitfulness, gift, observance of established rules of union with women, uh, speech well controlled, bringing all creature under his subjections. All these things are important for a king. The one that is without deceitfulness, he that is active, grateful, intelligent, guileless, even his treasury be empty, will have good friends and counselors and servants. So the king, even though he does not have anything to give anybody, he is not rich and prosper, still because of his conduct, he will have the friends and counselors. And similarly, it applies to others as well. So one that is of good conduct has good obtains good friends, counselors, and help people helping him. Intelligence, tranquility of mind, self-control, purity, absence of harsh speech, unwillingness to do anything disagreeable to friends. These seven are regarded as fuel of prosperity's flame. So again, important to one gains prosperity through intelligence, tranquility, self-control, purity, speaking, not speaking harsh words, and doing the agreeable things. Those are the things that's important. Those things that depend on women, the careless person, the men having fallen away from duties of their order, and those that are wicked dispositions are always doubtful of success. So if something is depend purely on women, careless person, men that have fallen from their order. So that means Kshatriya not doing Kshatriya's duty or Brahmana not doing Brahmana duty and those kind of things. If something is dependent on them, then its success is highly doubtful of those things. That man is highly uh, unlikely to achieve his success, and those when one employing somebody, one should always look for the competent people, uh, and then only one should do this. Vidura says that the giving up all those mighty um, energetic Pandavas sons, you have trusted Duryodhana uh, for this empire, and that's why all this wealth you have will fall off, just like Bali has fallen from these three words. So just like Bali has lost all his wealth, like that you will also look. Then Dhritarashtra listening to this says that man is not a disposer of either prosperity or adversity, so he cannot do anything when prosperity comes or adversity comes. Man is like a wooden doll moved by the string. So he says that we are all puppets played by the Paramatma, Narayana, and destiny is the supreme thing. So, but I'm attentive, I'm listening. Tell me more. Tell me more about these things. And then Vidura says that the words that spoken out of season, even if it is Brahaspati himself, does that, that person will incur reproach and charge of ignorance. So that's why one should always speak what is right for that season and truthful and virtuous, and always, as we previously said, even though it is harsh sometimes, speak the truthful thing. And Vidura reminds that as soon as Duryodhana was born, I told you that abandon this son. By abandoning this, you will secure prosperity of your 100 other sons. But you did not do that. And that's what leading to this loss. That's why this is what happening. And this what's happening here. He says that one should to gain something, if it by losing something, if something much bigger is gained, then one should always undertake that loss, be ready to accept that loss. By losing something, should be regarded as highly in cases if it brings some gain. If that's why that such a loss is not a loss, and you did not lose Duryodhana at that time when he was born, and that's why you are facing all these things. So he says that going through all the by uh, avoiding all those things, by not doing all those things, you are down. And Dhritarashtra then says that everything you say is right. I should have discarded Duryodhana when he was born, as you said, or I should have stopped him all the along whenever he did all these things. But I I can't do anything. Abandon my son. I can't abandon my son. I have to support him. I have to be with him, whatever he does. And you know that wherever there is virtue, where is there the righteousness, there is victory. So even Dhritarashtra knows that his sons are not virtuous and they're not going to win. And he says that where there is righteousness, there is victory. And Vidura then says that the one that is graced with every virtue and endued with humility is never indifferent, even in the minutest suffering of to the living creatures. So that person, the virtuous person, and one having humility will always look after all the creatures, and he never speaks ill of others and always strives to um, keeps away from quarreling with another persons, and always keeps away from giving pain to other people. There is sin in accepting gift from and danger in making gift to them, those people whose sight is very inauspicious, so whose companion is fraught with danger. So that's why. So this is again important here. Giving gift and also accepting gift from those people, as those sinful, wicked people, is not right. So one should not engage in those things. And they that are quarrelsome, covetous, shameful, resistful are known as unrighteous, and their companion should always be avoided. When the friendship occasion for the friendship is over, those people who are of low character conduct, they always leave and they speak ill of the friendship. So that's why one should make friendship with the people of high families and high conduct, and that's why and then they will benefit from that. The one that helps the poor, wretched, helpless relatives, obtains children, animals, and enjoys the prosperity. So this again uh, important here. So helping the poor, anybody in trouble, difficulty, helping the relatives, all this will result in having children, obtaining the children, and prosperity. Vidura then says that the one that uh, desire one's own benefit should always look after their relatives, and relatives, even the relatives that are destitute of good quality, should be protected. Then what about, so we should, that's why look after the Pandavas. What about such a virtuous Pandavas? You should always look after them. When Shastra says that even the relatives who are destitute of good quality should be protected, but you are not protecting these Pandavas who are virtuous and who always listen to what you say. And the one that desires his own good should never quarrel with his relatives. Happiness should ever be enjoyed by one's relatives and not without them. So you should always enjoy with relatives and not without them. To eat with one another, to talk with one another, to love one another is what relatives should always do. Not quarreling, not fighting, not arguing. That's why be right, good in your conduct to Pandavas. So Vidura reminds him that if relatives shrink in presence of prosperous relatives, then the prosperous relative has to take upon him all the sins of the others. So if one of the relatives is suffering very badly, uh, and in a lot of difficulty, and there is a wealthy, rich relative who is not helping, then the sin of not helping comes to this wealthy relative. So even just because by not acting, the wealthy relative takes that sin. So Vidura reminds him that the repentance will be yours for your inaction. So here, not doing any action, you will repent this later on. When Pandavas, you will hear the death of either Pandavas or your sons, that time you will repent of your inaction. And when life itself is unstable, one should give in very beginning, uh, avoid any act that consequence one may indulge in regret. So again, if life is in danger and it is itself is unstable, then don't actions should not do not commit to any action that makes you regret at later stage. So he again saying that, uh, don't do these kind of things. You are an aged person in the Kuru race. If Duryodhana did all these wrong things to Pandavas, it is your duty to undo all of them, reinstating them in their positions. You will attain fame. You will live happily after that. You will attain fame here and hereafter. That's why don't do this. Uh, go everything with Duryodhana says, go with Pandavas, undo everything that Duryodhana has done, then only you will uh, be accomplished. Vidura continues, and he says that the person that are learned, who never does an act, the consequence of which are sin and misery, and they always grows in prosperity. The wicked people, on the other hand, will do sinful actions. The wise always keeping the following six things and by which counsel becomes divulged. He and the one that desires success and a long dynasty should never guard himself from these six, and those are intoxication, sleep, inattention to spice, uh, set over one by another, one's own demeanor as dependent on working one's own heart, confidence reposed on wicked counselor, and unskillful envoys. If these things six are uh, there, then king uh, will be in trouble, because he will not achieve success with these six things. So without acquaintance with scriptures, without waiting upon the word, neither virtue nor profit can be known nor won by the persons blessed with intelligence of Brahaspati. Even one has the intelligence without knowing the Shastras, without waiting upon the old people, virtue uh, and dharma and artha will never be won by anybody. A thing that is lost, if cast into sea, if something thrown into the sea, that's gone. The world lost if addressed to one that does not listen. So if you speak something and people are not listening, that's wasted words. The Shastras are lost in one that has not control, it does not control his senses, and the libations are lost, libations of ghee is lost if the fire is already extinguished on the ashes. If it is poured on the ashes, it's lost, it is wasted. So the one that is having intelligence makes friendship with those that are wise, and having examined by the aid of his intelligence, he repeatedly searching for his understanding and using his ears, eyes, and judgment, he makes friendship with those people. Humility removes obloquy, fear, failure, prowess. Forgiveness always conquers anger. Auspicious rites destroy all the indications of evil things. One's lineage is tested by his object of enjoyment, place of birth, house, behavior, food, dress. With through all these things, one's lineage is tested. Uh, the king should always cherish a counselor who that worships the person of wisdom and endues with having a lot of learning, virtuous, agreeable in appearance, friends through his friends, sweet speech, and of good heart. Whether one is of low birth or high, he does not transgress the rules of the polite intercourse, and the one who has eye on the virtue, who is endued with humility and modesty, is superior to 100 persons of high births again. So we talked about people of high birth. Here Vidura says that if one has humility, modesty, these things, and one has eye on the virtue and is very polite, such a person is superior to even 100 persons of high birth. A friendship of those people never cools, and uh, secret pursuits, pleasures, acquirements in accord with every respect. So those things will come to those people. The intelligent should avoid an ignorant person of wicked soul, and similarly, a man of wisdom should never contract friendship with those that are proud, ignorant, fierce, rash, fallen from righteousness. And then one that is grateful, virtuous, truthful, large-hearted, devoted, and one that has senses under control, preserves his dignity, and never forsakes his frowns, and should always be desired for a friend. So the person who is grateful, virtuous, truthful, large-hearted, devoted, and senses under control should always be looked for a friendship. The withdrawal of senses from their respective objects is equivalent to death itself. So their excessive indulgence in again would ruin even the very devata. So again, sensual things, one should always withdraw from those things. Humility, love for all creatures, forgiveness, respect of friends. These are the things that lengthen the lifespan. The one who, firm in his resolution, strives to accomplish virtuous policy, proposes that have been frustrated is said to be possess the real manhood. So always one through virtuous policies does strives to do something, achieve his objectives, is the real man. So and one firmly resolved uh, in the present looks and anticipates looking at the past anticipates how it would end, that such a person is again attains his objects, whatever objects he attains. If one wishes something but one doing something, if he looks at how it started, how it is going, and always thinks about those things, then he can see how it's going to end. So efforts once after securing something that is good, the properties in time and place and the means, acquaintances and the scriptures, activities, straightforwardness, frequency, frequent meeting with that are good, these bring prosperity. So effort made towards acquiring something, what is good, and effort made in good time and place and the means of acquiring something, how it is acquired, knowledge of scriptures, activities, straightforwardness, all these things bring prosperity. And once prosperity comes, preservance is the root of prosperity again. So one should preserve it of prosperity, a root of prosperity and of gain and what is beneficial. So once that without preserving that, without giving it up in vexation, one should not in without just randomly give it away, and that's what Vidura says. Nothing more gives happiness, and nothing more proper for a man of power and energy as forgiveness. So he says that the forgiveness under all circumstances one should do, and the one that is possess the power of forgiveness from the motives of virtue, and the one that's for that person, success or failure of his objects is the same and is naturally forgiving. The pleasure, the pursuit of which does not injure one's virtue and profit, should certainly be one's well. So again, one should always look for the pursue the dharma and artha without harming anybody. And the prosperity that never resides in one who suffers himself tortured by grief, addicted to evil ways, and who denies uh, devatas, and who is idle, has senses not under control, and who is divested in exertion. Such a person never attains prosperity. Similarly, prosperity never approaches the from fear of the person who is excessively liberal. So if one is excessively liberal, prosperity does not come to him. The one gives away without measure, the one that is possessed of extraordinary the one that practices most rigid vows, the one is very proud of his wisdom. And also prosperity does not reside in the one who is highly accomplished, nor than one that is without any accomplishment. So he says that the one prosperity resides in the one who is not remarkable, so who is just normal and who is not distinguished, who is not uh, attracted by happiness or grief and things like that. So such a person attains prosperity. The fruits of Vedas are the ceremonies performed before the home of fire. The fruits of acquaintance with scriptures are the goodness of disposition and conduct. Fruits of women are the pleasure and they bring, and also the offsprings. The fruits of wealth are enjoyment and charity. So if one has wealth, and the fruits of that wealth is enjoying that and also doing charity. In the middle of desert, deep wood, or inaccessible fastness, amid all in among all the kind of dangers, alarms, or in the view of deadly weapons, one that has strength of mind entertains no fear. So there is no fear for him who, even in any place, whether it is in desert or wood or somebody is raising a weapon to strike him, he has no fear because he has strength of his mind and he knows how to get out of those dangers. So then again, he comes back to prosperity, exertion, self control, skill, carefulness, study, memory, commencement of action after mature deliberation. These are the roots of prosperity. Austerities constitute the wealth, strength of the ascetics. Vedas are the strength of those conversant with them. And envy lies with the strength of the wicked, and forgiveness is the strength of the virtuous people. He says that these are the 8 things that do not destroy a vow. So those are water, roots, fruits, ghee, milk, and what is done at the desire of a Brahmana or at the command of the Guru, or medicine as a medicine. So these do not destroy the vow. So if somebody, for example, is fasting, okay, vow, by drinking water, fruits, or eating fruits, milk, ghee, and all these things, or if someone says, eat this, a Brahmana says, eat this, or Guru says, eat something, or if one takes medicine, their fasting vow is not broken here. But then that doesn't mean that you should drink a lot of milk and fruits, so continue fasting. So it is in exceptional cases, it is allowed. And so Vidura then says anger must be conquered by forgiveness, wicked must be conquered by honesty, and miser should be conquered by liberality. Falseness must be through truth. One should not place trust on a woman, a swindler, a idle person, a coward, if the one that is fierce and the one that boasts his power, and a thief, ungrateful person, and an atheist. For these with these people, one should not place a trust. Achievements, period of life, fame, power, these 4 always expand in case of him that is respectively salutes his superior and waits upon the world. So waiting upon the world and superiors, we already heard many times, is what one should do. And through that, one achieves a lot of things and he achieves long life. Long life, again, we came across Markandeya's story, right? So by waiting upon those brahmanas and serving those rishis, he got long life. So fame, one attains fame through that, and power. Do not set your heart on the objects which cannot be acquired, uh, except very painful exertions, or by sacrificing righteousness, or by bowing down to an enemy. So if one have to achieve something by doing these things, by painful exertions or sacrificing virtue or bowing down to enemy, do not set your heart on those things. A man without knowledge is to be pitied. The the people of kingdom that are without food should be pitied. A kingdom without a king should be pitied. These, so Vidura says that similarly, a union with a woman which does not result in a children, result in children should be pitied. And these constitute the source of pain and weakness to embodied creatures. The rains, decay of hills, mountains, absence of enjoyment, anguish of a woman, the worldly arrows of the heart. These things, uh, pain and the weakness of all the creatures. And then he says the worst of uh, the Vedas. If one does not study the Veda, that's the worst thing that can happen. A Brahmana without vows is the worst. The earth with Balikas is the worst. The man of untruth is the worst, and unjust and curiosity is the worst of a chaste woman. And similarly, the woman the exiling from the home is the worst for the woman. And similarly for gold, it is silver, and for silver it is tin, for tin it is lead, and for lead it is useless dross. One cannot conquer sleep by laying down, woman by desire, fire with fuel, and wine by drinking it. So you cannot conquer wine by drinking it, and similarly conquer sleep by lying down. So I'm going to conquer this sleep, and you cannot lie down for a couple of hours and say I'm going to conquer the sleep today. So, and similarly, fuel fire by adding more fuel to it. So Vidura then says that the one's life is indeed crowned with success, the one who has made good friends, won good friends by gifts, and is won enemies in battle, who has a wife by food and good drink, and who has 1,000 lives, and those who have 100 lives. So he says that, tells Dhritarashtra that give up your desire. Uh, so there is none who cannot manage life by some means or others. All your wealth you have, whether it is the rice, you have wheat, gold, animals, everything you have, even cannot satisfy one person. If one person says that this is all, give it to one person, even that may not satisfy one person. So reflecting all these things, be the wise person and never grieve on wishing for more kingdom, more places to rule. So for give up that desire, adopt equal conduct towards your children and your sons, both your sons of Pandu as well as your own sons. Vidura continues further. He says that worshipped by the good and abandoning the pride, the good man who pursues his objects without overstepping the limits of his power soon succeeds in winning the fame. Uh, again, pursues his objects always, but without overstepping the limits of his power, and also following the virtuous policy, as previously said. Such a person wins fame, and because they are good when gratified with a person, are certainly competent to bestow happiness on him. So, because of that goodness in them, everybody will come and help that person. And the one that forsakes his own accord, even great object owing to it being fraught with unrighteousness, lives happily. So he says, again, reminds Dhritarashtra here that give up this object of you wishing for, desiring, because it is not virtuous. A victory gained by untruth, deceitful conduct towards a victory gained by untruth, deceitful conduct towards the king, and insincerity of intentions expressed before the guru. These three are equal to killing a brahmana. Excessive envy, death, boastfulness cause the destruction of prosperity. Carelessness in waiting a guru hurriness, and boastfulness. These are the three enemies of knowledge. So, if one wishes to acquire knowledge, one should be very careful in waiting for Guru's instructions and should not rush and should not boast, should not be very proud of what they have learned. Similarly, Vidura then says that idleness, inattention, confusion of intellect, restlessness, gathering of killing time, haughtiness, pride, covetousness, these seven are parts of the student who wishes to learn. So again, one wishes to learn should not be idle, should be active, should be very attentive, and should be using his intellect, uh, should be always avoid restlessness and should be peaceful, trying to be calm and always make using the good time, make good use of the time, and always become. Should never be having pride over what is learned, and should never covet something. And then he says, students again engaged in pursuit of learning cannot have the pleasure. So, if one wishes for pleasure, how can one have knowledge? So that's why student who wishes to gain knowledge give up on the pleasure. Fire is never gratified by fuel. Uh, Great ocean is never satisfied by river flowing it, and it never uh, overflows. Similarly, death never gratified by living, even taking life of entire all the creatures. And similarly, beautiful women are never gratified by any number of men she may have. Hope kills patience, yama kills growth, anger kills prosperity, miserliness kills fame, absence of tending kills cattle. Similarly, one angry Brahmana can destroy the whole kingdom. So Vidura then says that, as Manu says, goats, bulls, sandal, mirrors, honey, lyres, ghee, iron, copper, conch shell, saligrama, gorochana, always these should always be kept in one house, and let all those things be in your house. Similarly, uh, goats, brass, silver, honey, antidotes for poison, birds, brahmanas versed in Vedas, old relatives, men of high birth, uh, always be present in your house. He says that brahmanas gets always are objects of auspiciousness. So then he says that the virtue should never be forsaken for desire. Uh, he says, I'm going to tell you a sacred lesson here of the highest teaching of everything, because virtue should never be forsaken from desire, fear, temptation, nor from for the sake of life itself. So virtue should never be forsaken, whether it is for fear or desire or temptation, or even if at life at danger, one should not give up. Virtue is everlasting. Pleasure and pain are transitory. Pleasure, pain, and come and go, but virtue always stays with one. And life indeed is everlasting, but particular phases are transitory. So this Atma is everlasting, but the phases of this body is transitory and it comes and goes. So giving up on all these transitory elements, the pleasure, pain, and everything, and this body, take yourself to the virtue, because contentment, everlasting the contentment gives you that highest of all the things, and that's why be content. Look at all the kings that have come and gone and ruled this kingdom and ruled this earth, acquired this all the wealth and everything they had, and all of them have died. All of them have left. All of them left their kingdom with all the things they have accumulated. They have left everything. The sons brought up by them with anxious care, when died, are taken up to the burning ground, and with hair disheveled, they crying, all of them. They put the body on that funeral pyre, and as just like as if it's a piece of wood. The dead body is kept on the that funeral pyre as just like as a piece of wood. All those others, after the death, the wealth is enjoyed by everybody, just like the bird, birds and the fire enjoys the dead body. So it burns with only with two only he goes to the other world. So the man after death goes to the other world with only two things. That is, with the merits he has accumulated and the sins he has uh, accumulated. So only those two things go with him. Throwing away this body, the relatives, friends, everybody go back to their home, and the person who has died takes only two things. So that's whatever he has done in this, his actions, the results of his actions, only those things he takes away. And taking them away, that's why men should always carefully and gradually earn merit of righteousness. So by doing virtuous things, one should earn those things, and that's the one thing that one should takes. Otherwise, takes all the sins, because the relatives, sons, they do not come with you. The wealth accumulated that does not come with you. So that's why do the things what is good for you, what is virtuous, do those things. So carefully listening to these words, act according to those things. The Atma is like a river. Religious merit constitutes is its sacred bath. Truth is its water. Self-control are its banks. Kindness are its waves. So the one that is righteous purifies himself by the path in that river. Uh, because Atma is sacred and the absence of desire is the highest merit. Life is a river and whose waters are five senses. And crocodiles, sharks are desire and anger, making self control, uh, controlling yourself, cross those river and escape from the sharks and crocodiles, desires, angers, controlling your senses, cross this river. Vidura then says that worshipping and gratifying the friends that are eminent in wisdom, virtue, learning, and years, the one that asks advice about uh, what should do and should not do, never be misled. So by worshipping them, one should get those advices. One should restrain one's lust, uh, stomach, or lust and stomach, that is what one eats, and lust by patience. One's hand and feet by one's eyes and ears by one's mind, and one's mind by words, mind and words by one's actions. The Brahmana who never omits to perform his ablutions, his sandhya, and who wears his sacred thread, who always attends to his study of Vedas, who always avoids food that is unclean, and who tells truth and perform actions in honor of his guru, never falls off from the region of Brahma. So the Brahmanas always doing his Sandhya prayers, doing always his ablutions, and always wearing sacred thread, doing the studying, looking after, so doing service to his guru, always eating clean food, truthful, and such a Brahmana attains the region of Brahma himself. Having studied the Vedas, pouring libations into the fire, performing the sacrifices, protecting the subjects, sanctifying his soul by drawing weapon and protecting the cows and brahmanas, and dying in the battle of field, Kshatriya attains the heaven. So, so Vidura here narrating the all the four classes, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, how they attain heaven. So Brahmanas by doing their Sandhya prayers and learning, studying, Guru King of serving the Guru and things like that. For Kshatriyas, studying the Vedas, performing the sacrifices, protecting the Brahmanas and cows, and then by dying in the battle, Kshatriyas attain heaven. Vaishyas having studied the Vedas, distributed in proper time the wealth they accumulated to Brahmanas and Kshatriyas and to one's own dependents, and having inhaled this sanctified smoke of three kinds of fire. So that means performing the sacrifices and things, Vaishya enjoys the heavenly bliss. And finally, Shudras, having properly worshipped Brahmana, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas in due order. So again, Brahmanas first, and then, or if not, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. And then by doing that, he burns all his sins. And by burning all the sins, giving up his peacefully leaving this body, Shudra enjoys heaven. So this is the four orders. Thus, that's how four classes of people how they attain heaven. Listen, the reason of my speech, Vidura says, Yudhishthira is falling off from his duties. So Yudhishthira is born as a Kshatriya, but by living in the forest, he is not ruling the kingdom. He is not protecting his subjects or cow or brahmanas and things like that. Let him place him as a king and let him discharge his duties as a king. Dhritarashtra says that even as you say, you teach me, uh, my heart inclines to do what you are telling me. However, whenever I see Duryodhana, I think completely differently. When I'm listening to you, everything sounds right. All the things you say is right. But when I look at Duryodhana, I forget all these things and I just do what Duryodhana says. Dhritarashtra then kind of resigningly he says that everybody has to go with what destiny is assigned to them. It is the fate. So if whatever I do is going to be useless, so whatever that's going to happen, let it happen. So with that, Vidura stops speaking. Then Dhritarashtra again asks him more questions. So we'll look at those things in the next time.